morning. This morning is a very nuanced one another. You might be surprised that it's even in your scriptures. Here, this comes from 1 Corinthians chapter 7. The one another is in verse 5, but I'm going to read to you beginning in verse 2. But because of the temptation to sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife, and each woman her own husband. The husband should give to his wife her conjugal rights, and likewise the wife to her husband. For the wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband does. And likewise, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife does. Here's the one another. Do not deprive one another, except perhaps by agreement for a limited time, that you may devote yourselves to prayer. But then come together again, so that Satan may not tempt you because of your lack of self-control. If you follow it, it's pretty clear, right? The point of do not deprive one another has to do with the sexual relationship within the context of marriage. When you say I do, you say I do in terms of a life of fidelity and a life of self-giving. In this way, you can't simply speak of yourself as fully autonomous. You are someone who is one flesh now with someone else. For the rest of your life, you're to be in that monogamous union. With that, you're handing the keys over. Not the keys to be abused, not the keys to be taken advantage of, not the keys to be manipulated. This in no way is a kind of text that is sanctioning selfish abuse of another or the use of another merely for personal pleasure. This is not a kind of text about using people. It's assuming a self-giving should give to his wife. She should give to her husband. It's in the context of a mutually giving love. But it is giving a kind of responsibility, and that is that I'm not to be a hoarder of myself. My wife is not to be a hoarder of herself. She is to be free with herself, and I'm to be free with myself in one particular area of sexual relations, and that is with one another. I'm to give myself and not withhold myself from her, and she is to give herself and not withhold herself from me. That can be a sensitive area, and I understand that because sometimes, unfortunately, people have been abused and manipulated. All abuse and all manipulation of that ilk, or of any ilk for that matter, is wrong. The objectification of one another is wrong. We need to say, according to Scripture, so is the willful withholding of one another and the weaponizing of withholding sex in the context of marriage. So what we want to be is a people who don't deprive one another when we enter into the marital union, but give to one another. You know, marriage in terms of the sexual relationship is kind of both a thermostat and a thermometer. It both sets the temperature and tells the temperature of the marriage. And I think there's great application here to this idea when it comes to don't deprive one another. If you're a taker in the bedroom, you're probably a taker in bigger issues of life. If you're a giver in the bedroom, you're probably a giver in the bigger issues of life. So as we one another, in the most intimate of ways, don't deprive one another. May the Lord bless you today.